good, y'all? Welcome to my review for episode 31 of Stone Ocean. Phenomenal episode, man. Like, this was easily my favorite episode of part 6 so far. And I love this episode. And this is honestly also one of my favorite episodes of JoJo, just period. Like, I think this might be a top 10 favorite episodes of all time of 6 parts of JoJo that have been adapted in the anime so far. This probably might make the top 10, I would say. I love this episode. It honestly had that, like, Part 4 Diamond is Unbreakable feel to, which you guys know is my all-time favorite part of JoJo, is Part 4 Diamond is Unbreakable. And while I was watching this episode, I feel like I'm back watching Diamond is Unbreakable again, you know what I mean? Like, cause like, Diamond is Unbreakable, when that thing was at its best around the end of the series, my god, those episodes were godly, bro. And also gotta give a massive shout out to Young Yan, man. His performance during around the middle part of the episode with Father Pucci, bro, oh my god. Shout outs to him, man. His performance was amazing, man. But we'll talk more about that when we get there. But yeah, without further ado, let's just jump right into the actual episode. So we start this one off with basically with the narrator setting the scene. And oh my god, I know I've mentioned this countless times, probably more so in part 4, but then I have in other parts. But I fucking love the dubbed JoJo narrator. I love his voice and just how he just explains certain things, man. And here was no different as he sets the scene about this tale began in the deep south on the day of June 16, 1972. Just the way he says that, and always sets the scene, man. It's just amazing. I love the JoJo narrator for the dub to death. He's probably also one of my favorite cast members of the dub of each part, man. It's just him, man. He's just that good, man. I love the JoJo narrator, and once again, he's just fantastic here as he sets the scene. So we start off with us in the Deep South, although judging by the looks of everything throughout this episode, I'm about 90% certain this is supposed to be Louisiana, with all the like the water, the lakes, and the ships, and all the shrubbery and like the vines and everything. It looks a lot like Louisiana, so I'm assuming that Father Pucci and Weather are both from Louisiana, because that's what it looks like to me. And the fact he says the Deep South, like the Deep South is like Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, if I remember correctly, like those kinds of states. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong on that. If I'm getting my geography or American history wrong, correct me in the comments. But I'm pretty sure that's what those a few say that mean when they say the Deep South. And like I said before, it looks like Louisiana. So we see this woman. She hasn't really had a good hand in life, and thought that with the birth of her son, she would finally start to represent the hope of her having a better life. But the baby ended up dying almost as soon as it was born. So one thing I gotta say I loved about this shot right here is that right when the narrators talk about like that hope she might have had was gone when she found out her child was dead, but wasn't ready to part ways with her child's death yet. I love that the sun, or rather the moon, is covered up by a cloud, and then the light that we saw on her face and her body, especially on the close part of her eye that was there with light. When he says like the hope was gone, it's the cloud. There's a cloud that goes over it, and then all that light is disappeared and it's just covered in shadows. I thought that was just brilliant visual storytelling and really cool from David Productions. Man. I thought that was really cool by David Production to do that, man. It looked so clean when they actually had the shadows cover her face after like all the hope was off. I love shit like that, man. You guys know I'm a film student, so whenever I see shit like that in like anime or video games or whatever, I always pop a little bit for that, man, because that shit's always so cool to see in anything but films. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. So the narrator describes that she left the room like a phantom in the night, which I love the JoJo narrator. He's so good, man. I love him. But anyway, what she ended up doing was switching the baby with another family's baby, and then basically putting her dead baby in the place of the other baby that was a set of two fraternal twins. Obviously, weather forecast and Father Pucci. Now, this is actually something I didn't notice before. As we found out later on in the episode, we saw that Father Pucci was born with pretty much his left foot being completely fucked up, having like twisted toes and everything. He means always had to walk with a limp. But we actually get to see that right here, and I didn't notice this when I first saw the episode, but you can actually see what his foot looked like when it was, all bent up and shit. Yeah, it looks pretty nasty, man. It looks pretty fucked up, man. It looks pretty mangled over there, man. So we cut over. It's been about a few years. It's been a few years. We're now in I think like the 80s or something. And when like Father Pucci gotta be like around like 8 years old at this point, and they're visiting the grave of their supposedly of Father Pucci's supposed dead brother. But obviously no, she switched her baby out with weather forecast. So his actual brother's still alive, but So then we see the visiting in the grave. You have Father Pucci there along with his sister and of course his two parents, and we find out that they gave him the name Dominic. So then we cut over to another. So then we have another flashback to the year 87, where we see Father Pucci's already 15 years old, and he is already kind of begun working in the church as he's praying to God, asking him why he was surviving, why while his brother died, what brings keep people together, and why do people find happiness? And once again, this is something I mentioned, but the storyboarding in this episode was phenomenal. Like I love the shots we have of the stained glass. It looked amazing. There were a lot of shots with Father Pucci, especially later on in the episode, that looked absolutely immaculate, man. So many amazing shots this episode, man. So whoever was the storyboardist for this episode, shout outs to you, man. You did a phenomenal job. But anyway, we get some more information on Father Pucci. He was a son. Or rather, his great grandmother was on his dad's side was married to a famous clergyman in Italy. So yeah, so you got a little bit of that Italian, little bit of that Italian lineage in there, So I don't know. I also kind of found it funny that he was Italian of all things. I don't know if that was meant to someone connected to Giorno at all, but I just found it funny. Which I googled what a clergyman is because I'm like, the fuck is a clergyman? It's a priest. Why they couldn't just say priest, I don't know. Ain't no one know in the year 2022 that isn't deep in religious, philosophy and all and history and all that shit knows what the fuck a clergyman is. You know what I mean? So I don't know why they couldn't just say a priest, bro, because ain't no one know what a clergyman is. But either way, man, when Father Pucci told his family they wanted to join the church and everything, there was because of course their lineage on his dad's side, there was no objections to him becoming a man of God. So then we cut over to him in the basement of the church or whatever, and he ends up tripping on someone's foot. Dio's foot. I was gonna say, I love the sound effect they play when his feet skirt back into the shadows, man. I just love that sound effect they use. Pretty funny. So then we see Dio is now hiding behind some pillar deep in the shadows as he picks up the book that he was reading. That's based off this about this priest that would commit adultery and would run away to become a painter. And he questions how a man of God would read something so scandalous. And once again, Patrick's performance is in this episode is phenomenal, man. You guys know how good he is as Dio, man. And it's always good to see when Dio's back, man. His performance here was absolutely fantastic. So Father Pucci's asking, of course, why is he here? Who are you? He tells him that he's deadly allergic to the sun. Which is that actually a legitimate thing? We know the real reason why Dio is allergic to the sun because he's a vampire. But is this actually ever a thing with normal people? Are there any people that are actually deathly allergic to the sun and cannot stand in it? I'm genuinely curious if that's actually an actual disease or whatever. Either way, Father Pucci tells him that he can stay until the sunset, and then he has to go. Dio kind of questions why he would let him stay. Why wouldn't you just try to kick him out? Or maybe you're saying I'm good, but you're just gonna rat me out to the cops. He says, "Oh, do you want me to do that?" He says because he says that he might be a burglar trying to steal all their valuable goods as well as their paintings. And he says there's no way a burglar would make up such a blatant lie saying they had a sun allergy. Not even the devil himself would even say such a thing. So because of how ridiculous it sounded, it was enough to mean that he must be telling the truth, and he does indeed have an allergy. So then Father Pucci walks past him. Dio eventually notices his limp and asks if he twisted his ankle because he tripped on him. And he says, now I've been like this since birth. And Dio asks him if he believes in the gravity of people being brought together. And that's when he pulls out the stand arrow. Correct me if I'm wrong, that is the Requiem stand arrow from part 5, if I remember correctly. Because I'm pretty sure that one had the bug on it, while the standard stand arrow that we saw in the beginning of part 4, in part 4 and part 3, did not have the bug on it. I could be wrong that one, and always had the bug on it. If you guys can, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure this is indeed the Requiem stand arrow from part 5. Anyway, the stand arrow starts to spin around Dio's head before it points towards Father Pucci like it's fucking spin the bottle or some shit. And he offers the stand arrow as a gift to Father Pucci for their meeting. And Dio says that he is a traveler that lives for fate encounters. And then he disappears into the shadows behind him. And also the animation there looked really cool, man. I really dug the animation. they had there for when Dio disappeared into the shadows. And that's when Father Pucci checks his foot, and he realizes that his foot has been completely set back, his toes are no longer busted, and now he has two completely normal feet now. And he's like, oh, who are you? We then have another time skip to the year 1988, where Father Pucci is cleaning up the confessional as a woman steps in there ready to confess. Now, interesting thing I thought about this is that you guys, now in every movie, I'm assuming you guys have seen that features confessionals, they always have a door. You know, there's usually you have the two rooms that are kind of connected. You have the little like clear door where you can kind of see into each other, and there's usually always doors by them when you open them, when you or like something to close them in once you step inside the confessional. There were no such things here. At the very least, they were not there when Father Pucci was cleaning it, so maybe they have like curtains over it, but for whatever reason he decided for whatever reason they were removed for this part. But regardless of such, this woman confesses her sins, where she confesses that she is the mother that switched up weather forecast with her dead baby. Of course, Father Pucci is shocked by this revelation as she's crying her eyes out. Weather forecast like, oh shit, I'm gonna lose this job. I shouldn't be working because of the school policies. But Perla tells him that she'll say that he broke the window and all is good. So then after all that, weather forecast decides to ask this girl out today. He says, Hey, my name is Wes, but some people call him Weather. Wanna hang? And given what happened to Weather later on in the episode, I just thought that wording was funny. So we then cut back to Father Pucci. He's of course distraught and left at a crossroads of what to do given this information they found out that indeed his brother is still alive. But of course, since he is bound by the church, he cannot bound by the rules of bound by the church and confessional. He cannot say a word of what he had. Otherwise, in the eyes of the church, he would have failed as a man of God. So he can't tell anyone. He thinks maybe I can try convincing her to confess herself. But would that even work? Would Father Pucci and weather forecast even be able to connect, given how many years it's been and all that? And then we see him walk towards his home. And I gotta say, this shot of his house is fucking beautiful. Like I said, the storyboarding in this episode was amazing. I just love this shot in general. Like, you have the trees that kind of like curve over to where the house is. You have this big open yard in the middle of it as you see the house down in the background, man. It's just a really nice shot, man. Shout out to Araki, because I'm sure it looked like this, exactly like this in the manga. But yeah, shout out to the Araki and, of course, the storyboard artist for this episode, man. Phenomenal work there. So then Father Pucci gets back to his porch and it's revealed that Perla is indeed Father Pucci's sister. So, incest, question mark? Anyway, so he gets there, he asks her what's going on, she's like she's spacing out. He tells her that her grades are slim, but she'll get them back up there, but that she has a new boyfriend. He's amazing, it's like their hearts are together, he's my soulmate, blah, 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 typical romance garbage. Father Pucci is, of course, happy that his sister is able to find love, and the narrator also tells us that Father Pucci never once told her about Weather being his brother. None of that was ever disclosed to her. She was left completely oblivious to the true nature of weather forecasts, as well as, of course, Pucci's relationship. Now, this next scene I thought was really interesting. I thought this was really cool, where the narrator himself sort of breaks the fourth wall. And I don't know if it was like this in the manga as well. If any of you guys are manga readers watching this video, please tell me in the comments if it was like this as well. But I love the fact that I thought it was really interesting, rather, that the narrator breaks the fourth wall and asks the viewer to be the judge on who truly sinned in this tale. Was it of course the mother for switching the babies? Was it the parents, Father Pucci's parents, or was it weather forecast who sinned? I'm assuming because of incest. I don't know what else why he would quote unquote sin, unless it's because incest, if who knew nothing, who was the true sinner here. And I just thought that was a fascinating question that the episode asked the viewer to ponder themselves, like who truly was the sinner in this story. I just thought that was cool. So then, when Father Pucci realizes that she's dating her brother / his brother. I don't know if it is necessarily incest, because nothing in the episode directly confirms or denies whether or not she is possibly adopted or his biological sister. I'm assuming it's biological, but who knows? Maybe she's adopted. I don't know. But yeah, he obviously decides he doesn't want her to get hurt, so he needs him to break it. So he heads over to this private detective and asks him to break them up. But we then find out that the dude's a fucking racist because, of course, he is. It is the South anyway, and we're in like the 1970s, man. You know, the fucking Civil Rights Act just happened. That was still very much fresh in everybody's mind at this time, and we are in the deep, deep South, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah. So of course, once we found out he was a racist, yeah, this story was not gonna end well. So then we cut over to when he sees Perla and weather forecast kissing. He's like, I did some research. This is legit what he sounds like. I did some research into him, and I found out in 1972 his whole mother married a black man. I do wonder if the ADR director for Part 6 at Bang Soup straight up told the VA, who, by the way, I gotta say he was fantastic as a private eye. His performance was fantastic, man. I want to know, did he or they ask the dude, like, just sound like the most racist redneck possible? Because that's basically what he sounds like, man. He literally sounds like the most racist redneck you've ever seen, bro. But anyway, after he continues on saying that even though he looks white, he's a black man's son. Hashtag relatable. Because I'm half black, but you look at my skin tone, you probably think I'm white. Anyway. So we then get to, once again hear from JoJo narrator saying that he gathered his clan together to of course punish Weather. Now, I'm pretty sure I mentioned my reaction as well for this episode, which I did record a reaction for this episode. But in my reaction, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it. Like I was fully expecting there to be the full Ku Klux Klan. You know, they would have their hoods on and everything. There were no such hoods in the episode, and I don't know if that was just what. I'm curious if that was a thing in the manga. Like maybe in the manga they had the hoods on, but when it was for the anime, whether it was due to Netflix or maybe just Japan's broadcasting thing, because the JoJo Part 6 is airing in Japan a little after the episodes air on Netflix. Could have said like, no, we don't want no clan hoods, but honestly, but either way, I was kind of surprised they weren't in full decked out in clans uniform or nothing, but they're just a bunch of white dudes, with their shovels and shit, But regardless of such, they get in there, they start beating on Weather, they start hitting on Perla too, of course, be like, yeah, kiss the lips of this good old sheriff, and one of them says, I think it was the PI says like you can whore yourself, calls her a slut, the typical things as he goes on saying like that animal doesn't deserve to know the taste of your pearly lips or whatever the fuck he said, and then actually Perla straight up slaps him, which was pretty cool. But then of course she gets sucker punched by the PI. As then Weather stands up screaming his heart. I honestly thought that Stan was going to awaken here, but no such Stan was awakened here as he gets hit in the back of the head with a shovel, where we find out the man was lynched by the tree in front of a cliffside. So yeah, very poor choice of words of Weather saying, "You want to hang?" Because, well, he's certainly hanging now. Anyway, then this is when a Rocky Strip reuses the ending of Romeo and Juliet. Because she gets him down from the tree, and then she jumps off the cliffside thinking he's dead so that she could join him in the afterlife, only to find out he had a slight pulse. Like I said, this man, Rocky, literally just reuses the ending of Romeo and Juliet, bro. I mean, it works. And the JoJo narrator sells this shit perfectly, man. But I just thought that was funny. Like, the second I saw it, I'm like, this is just the ending of Romeo and Juliet. But JoJo fun. And then we get to Father Pucci. And Father Pucci finds Perla's body in the water as I'm assuming the Coast Guard or whatever, the Sheriff Department or whatever, are pulling the body out. As Yongye acts his fucking ass off, bro. And like I said, I mentioned it before, but I gotta say again, shout outs to Yongye, man. His performance here was phenomenal, man. Especially when you consider Young is still very much new to voice acting. He only started, I think, like a couple years ago. And I could be wrong on this, but this is his first like very major high profile role he's gotten as Father Pucci in JoJo. So given all that, man, his performance was really fucking good, man. Like seriously, his performance here was fantastic. And he said, like, don't you dare cross your heart and bury my sister while I'm still here. And of course, when Father Pucci started holding his body, he said, like, why did this happen? All she did was fall in love, man. Like I said, Young's performance here is So fucking good, man. Like I know it's like given the history of JoJo at this point, where they don't get where for whatever reason Toonami dubs and JoJo included, even when Part 6 was on Netflix, they for whatever Crunchyroll for whatever reason doesn't nominate it for their best dub performance, even though JoJo probably has one of the best ongoing dubs currently. I hope that maybe this year Crunchyroll finally get their head out of their ass and give you and at least nominate Young for his performance here as Falcon man. His performance here was fucking amazing, man. And so as he cries out there, he remembers what Dio told him about the stand arrow and telling him to use it to find him, and that's when he is eventually pierced by the stand arrow itself, and then Perla's head splits open, revealing her memory disc. And then we get back over to weather forecast, and I thought this transition was pretty cool. Where we see his body, but then we see his body like him in like completely in shadow, kind of move across the screen as we transition to the next scene. Man, I thought that looked really fucking cool. So we're back with the PI. He's like, "Oh, are you the guy that wanted me to check to see if you're wild with Chino? Well, if you don't want your hair pumped full of lead, get out there." And it's revealed to be Weather, and oh my god, Weather is such a badass here, man. As he's like hiding in the shadow, telling him, "You're a man of information. So I want to ask you, why are there so many snails coming in? Why is there snails coming out of you? Why is there such a snail infestation whenever I'm around?" And that's when he asked him if Father Pucci was one that sent him to kill him, as well as Perla's older brother doing that, and of course he is shocked that Weather Forecast is still alive before he blows his brains out there. Then, which I thought was kind of interesting, I wonder if that was maybe just due to the shock of everything and just feeling he's like of his death, or maybe that had some influence from Weather Stand at all. Probably wasn't. Dude probably was just scared shitless that the dude was still alive. He's like, "Nah, fuck this shit, I'm out," you know. But then Weather uses the gun to try and kill himself, but it doesn't work. The chamber is full of water. And then for the rest of here, once again, the JoJo narrator's voice acting performance here was phenomenal, man. As we see all the different ways Weather tried to kill himself, none of them ended up working. Now, we know that his subconscious sometimes activates his stand, and we know his stand active is using Weather. So I wonder if the fact that he can't kill himself, no matter how many times he tries, even though he very much wants to die to join Perla, is because his stand keeps activated by itself, keeping him from killing himself, given that the barrel of the gun so keeps getting filled with water, or the waves move away from him to be able to take before he can like drown him or anything. I do wonder if this is all the work of his stand, if that's the reason why he can't kill himself, or maybe it was fate, and it just wasn't his time to die, and fate made sure, and he couldn't die because it wasn't because of fate. It wasn't his time to die yet. That could be a fair also possibility, because considering Part 6 of Fest Weekly has gone into a lot of detail about fate and how fate brings people together and everything. That was a big theme of this episode, the last couple episodes as well, about fate and everything. So that could be another reason as well why Weather Forecast couldn't kill himself. Either way, this gave him not only deep hatred for hatred for the city, but just humanity in general, just given what happened to him and Perla. So then we see Father Pucci wakes up in the hospital. We find out that there's been a huge snail infestation in the city, which we still don't know why his stand is connected with snails at all. I'm assuming that maybe saved for the next episode when we finally figure out what the hell the connection is with snails with the weather. At least I hope so, because I'm like, yo, bro, when are you gonna tell us about what's up with the snails, bruh? So we see there's a huge snail infestation. Father Pucci wakes up in a hospital, and that's when he eventually meets up with Weather Forecast. They have a slight duel as they stare each other down, unleash their stands, and he gets out Weather Forecast's memory disc, saying that if you don't have memories, you are as good as dead. You will spend the rest of your life as a caged animal. And we see Weather Forecast in his prison cell, somehow gotten completely new clothes in between, that for whatever reason. But regardless of such, we then come back to the present, where we can pick up right where we left off with Weather Forecast and Anastasia. Weather Forecast basically tells him that after he's done with Father Pucci, he wants him to kill him, and that's basically where the episode ends. Because we also see Jolene and Hermes kind of rush off on the Porsche, trying to get over to Weather Forecast before we get to the credits. So yeah, fantastic episode, man. Easily the best of Part 6. Honestly, one of my all-time favorite episodes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Probably my top 10, honestly, like I mentioned before. This episode was absolutely incredible, man. So yeah. Overall, guys, I give this episode, of course, a 10! out of fucking 10, ladies and gentlemen. So as always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on my socials if you feel like it. Links down in the description box below. And as always, come out for more. See you guys next time.